Best paint schemes of the year. It's our annual tradition where we see which schemes, if any, can beat the Sunny D car. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to a special episode of Out of the Groove. This time 1 year ago, the NASCAR community was panicking. The door number decals, which for decades had been centered on the side of the car, were about to be slid forward a few inches. Pandemonium. Spoiler alert, we all managed to survive a full year of the new next-gen door number placement, and in my opinion, we got some fantastic paint schemes as a result. Some duds, for sure, and we may do a separate video here in the next few days covering those, but we got plenty of winners as well. Usually, I just do a top 10 list, but this year I was sifting through old photos and footage trying to find every Cup Series scheme that hit the track this year, and I couldn't stop at just 10. I found 20, then I found 30, then I found, I think, upwards of 40 that I had to consider for my top 10 list. So because the year is 2022, instead, I'm gonna do my top 22 Cup Series paint schemes, and then I've got some honorable mentions. Honestly, whether you like the door number placement or not, can we all just be thankful they didn't do this full-time, slide the door numbers back? Looking back, it's actually kind of crazy that they attached, rear underglow for that one race. But can we all agree that what we got this year was better than this? I think so. Anyway, before we begin my list, I feel like it's important every year for me to remind everyone that this is just my opinion. Art is purely subjective. Who is it that said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder? Someone famous, important in history, I'm sure. Well, that's exactly right. What I think looks good likely is not going to align with what you think looks good. Hopefully, some of our favorites cross paths in this video, but I don't anticipate my list will be exactly to anyone's liking. And secondly, all this is meant to be is some fun off-season content. I am no professional designer, and I don't mean to offend or insult any professional designers who may have had a hand in designing any of these paint schemes we're about to look at today. I also understand that sponsors, brand guidelines can be a chore to work around. So I really hope this video doesn't come off as a personal shot at anyone's artistic vision or designs. It's just supposed to be fun, chance to get the community talking. I always love hearing what your favorite schemes are down in the comments below. A lot of y'all tweeted at me in the last couple days, images of your favorite schemes of the season, some of which I considered for my list. But that's what this is. This is solely my list. The best 22 Cup Series paint schemes, or liveries, designs, whatever you want to call them, of the season. Oh, and this list won't include any throwback schemes. Just want to make that clear. I've got too many honorable mentions to count. These are schemes that just didn't quite make the cut. First up, Chase Elliott's Napa car. Looks great, but between the lack of yellow on the front nose or on the side skirt, there's some blue on the side skirt last year as well, this car just seems to be lacking some of what I loved about last year's Napa scheme. Denny Hamlin's Coca-Cola car, that flat gray number 11 on the door just stands out to me for all the wrong reasons. If Coca-Cola is going to brand itself as real magic there on the hood, the least they could do is add a shiny chrome reflective door number, or just make it white, something that matches the rest of the car, because otherwise this is just a Coca-Cola branded car. It looks just like the logos on their bottles and it looks good. I want to give this scheme some love. Dex Imaging taking full advantage of the extra door space looks great. The Tide ride, I couldn't quite sneak it into my top 20. I love the theming, Tide detergent on the Bristol dirt track. You may see its cousin, though, a little later on this list. I'm wearing a desert Route 66 themed t-shirt, so of course I'm gonna love the car that has rock formations painted as a mural along the entire door. Mars going out strong their final season, burnt orange, jack-o'-lanterns on the side. Who doesn't love a good Halloween-themed M&M scheme? Way better than that zombie scheme they ran a couple years ago. That was just a flat gray. I love the blue on this one. I also love the big, bold B on the hood. A strong, simple logo like that, in my opinion, can elevate a lot of paint schemes. I think that's what's happening here. Aside from the two front teeth on this car, it looks pretty good. I just don't like it quite as much as last year's base purple ally scheme. This scheme really doesn't have any flaws. It just doesn't speak to me quite the same way some others do. The Bass Pro Colors and Martin Truex Jr., though, their brands have become synonymous at this point. GoPro on Daniel Suarez looks great, but because this was a night race, I think all the reflective door numbers and designs look better on a dark black backdrop as opposed to the white. So again, may see this one's cousin a little later on the list as well. Many of y'all said I was wrong for having the Subway car in my top 10 last year, and maybe you were right, because I still like this scheme a lot, but maybe I outgrew it a bit because I just think there are 20 or so schemes better this season. So still worth an honorable mention, but not as great as last year in my opinion. Kubota joined Ross Chastain late in the season. I'd love to see what this car looks like without the yellow playoff spoiler and banner, just orange and black. I think that would look sharp. Some of y'all are gonna hate me, but as cool as winning in the Michael Jordan branded car is, this scheme doesn't come close to my top 20. I'm sure this pattern, these colors look great on a shoe, not on a race car, at least not in my opinion. It's not really my taste. The HendrickCars.com colors are perfect for a patriotic scheme. I love that they went with stars in the front, stripes in the back. Great Memorial Day car. Y'all know I love brightly colored race cars, but this one's just a little bit too much. Cheddars. I love that it goes from dark to lighter to dark back to lighter, kind of orange on the side, but really what stands out to me are all the buttery, flaky croissants. I kind of overlooked this car when I saw it, but this thing just looks like a modern, futuristic, next-gen scheme to me. I don't know if it's the blue gradient on the front nose coming up from the splitter, if it's the side with the chrome number 6, or the 3 little Keselowski added stripes coming up from the side skirt that help frame the associate sponsors. I'm not sure what it is, but this car, it grew on me quite a bit over the course of this season. This is probably the closest thing we're ever going to see to a modern day silver bullet scheme. I saw this car, I think this photo was taken at the Busch Clash, and when I saw it on track compared to all the others, I think I even tweeted this, it just popped. Glistening under the California sun, beautiful paint scheme. Whew. And those were just the honorable mentions. I hope I haven't lost too many of y'all yet. Now it's time for my top 22 NASCAR Cup Series schemes of 2022. Beginning with number 22, Ross Chastain's Be a Moose Chevrolet. I knew I liked this car when I first saw it, but perhaps, just like a fine wine, it's just better with age. The more times I see it, and I've seen it a ton the last couple weeks, ever since the Hail Melon maneuver, I've grown to appreciate it more and more. I always loved the red to black gradient on the hood and like how some of the red dips down onto the nose. That looks really good. And while I'm focusing on the hood, remember what I said about big, bold, clear logos making a scheme better? This is a prime example of that. Moose on the hood. The sponsor decals are the focal point for most of these designs. So if you have a good looking logo like FedEx, big bold block letters, purple and orange, in my opinion, that looks better on a race car that's going 200 miles an hour than a sponsor like Nurtec on Cody Ware's car, where it's just Nurtec in like Arial font. They always have like disclaimers and medical stuff underneath it. It's just messy, it's busy, it's small, doesn't pop quite the same way Moose, beamoose.org does on this one. I also love, and I didn't really notice this until studying photos more closely, the little moose silhouette there in front of the rear wheel. It's a nice touch. Let's move on to number 21, and I just mentioned FedEx as an example. Denny Hamlin's FedEx Primary. I wasn't 100% sure when I first saw this design, but I love purple race cars. They added a lot of purple onto this year's design. I get Phoenix Suns from this car. The purple and orange obviously play a role, but really it's the way they transition from one color to the next, that gradient along the side skirt that also simultaneously helps frame some of those associate sponsors well. Or the nose. On either side, it goes from orange to purple. The back, C-post, again, purple to orange gradient. It gives me sunset. It's like I'm watching a beautiful West Coast sunset at 190 miles per hour. There's an awful lot of white on the side, but at least it looks aerodynamic. It kind of looks like a paper airplane, how it starts kind of big and wide in the back and then narrows out to a point there once you get close to the front nose. It's like throwing a paper airplane. I don't know, paper airplanes, they're pretty aerodynamic. So I think this looks good on a race car. Good enough for 21. At number 20, I hope y'all didn't forget about this car, Noah Gregson's Wendy's Chevrolet that he ran at Talladega back in the spring. This was a pretty cool activation and a great paint scheme. God, how many of those Wendy's Biggie Bag commercials have we seen watching races this year? They managed to squeeze the Biggie Bag right there onto the door, again, making great use of the extra door space. I also appreciate the painted side skirts on this one. I don't think painting the side skirts is absolutely necessary for every paint scheme, but for some it helps, and I think it looks good on this one. The only thing this car is missing, perhaps, is a different color spoiler. Could we have added a red or a light blue spoiler? I think that would have put this car over the top. We always talk about painting the side skirts, but I don't think enough people talk about the importance of painting the rear spoiler. Is there a rule with the next gen that you're not allowed to paint the rear spoiler, unless you're in the playoffs? Because come to think of it, I'm not sure that many cars, if any, had different colored spoilers. Like, they're always black or yellow if you're in the playoffs. Leave a comment down below if you can think of a paint scheme this year that had a different colored rear spoiler, because we've seen them in the past, but I'm not sure we saw it this year. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me go through the rest of my list. At number 19, let's give the Loves car some love. Red and yellow, a little bit of orange there. Once again, a sponsor taking full advantage of the extra space, and Loves in this case even angling their logo. There's a few cars, we might see a few more on this list that did that as well this year, sponsors that did that, and I think that's great. Fits the space even better, can allow your logo to be larger, and when the logo's tilted like that, to me that looks more aerodynamic, like you're leaning into the wind. Great looking car. Michael McDowell gave it some great finishes this year. I love the red, orange, and yellow stripes going across the front nose. Unfortunately, the big black Ford Mustang grill opening and front end logo and all that kind of disrupts it a little too much, but it's absolutely worthy of a spot in the top 20. I don't think it gets enough credit for how solid and iconic and easily recognizable it is. At number 18, I've got to give M&M's a little more love. With the extra space on the door, they were able to add extra M&M's characters. Look, you got 3 M&M's characters on the side of the car in this one. I don't feel like they usually have that many. I could have put the final M&M's car in here. It was really the same scheme, just with, mosaic of fans and stuff, but just the classic M&M's look. It doesn't matter if it's a Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 7, always looks good. So M&M's, their presence in the sport, really on the track as a paint scheme, is going to be missed. I'm glad they had some good paint schemes this year. I don't think I've ever had an M&M scheme in my top 5 or 10 though, with the exception maybe of the caramel M&M's car from a few years back. I really like that like deep royal blue base color. I don't know, I went through a phase or something, but this one looks outstanding. So shame we won't see M&M's on track next year. To me, the most important part of M&M's being in NASCAR was having this paint scheme on track, something that kids, fans at home could easily spot, easily identify with, and easily root for. So yeah, M&M's Mars will be missed. At number 17, I'm going with Eric Jones's Air Force scheme. A really simple one. I mean, look at this. There's some black arrows on the side of the hood, some on the side of the door towards the rear, but otherwise, this is a simple but effective paint scheme. Maybe I'm biased because I've been looking at this paint scheme on my desk for months. Lionel sent me this, one of the first next gen 164 prototypes ever, and it's this exact paint scheme and it looks really, really good. So I've been staring at it for months now. Maybe that's it. We also saw Eric Jones almost win Talladega early in the year in this car. So we saw it on TV quite a bit. I don't know, it just looks good. See, I promise I'm not one-dimensional. I may love brightly colored cars a lot, but I can also appreciate the opposite when it's done effectively in this case. Back-to-back Petty GMS cars. Number 16, I'm going with Ty Dillon's Allegiant scheme. Again, I like the bright blue. I love the orange and yellow on the side. What stood out to me though, see that rear wheel? The rays of sunlight coming out of the rear tire matches the logo that you see on the hood there and on the side, I suppose. I love the color mix, but I also love those small details. I think this car looks really, really good. It even matches the Petty GMS team colors, or at least almost. The Petty blue may not be exactly the same, but the orange, definitely a GMS orange. So I don't know. I respect this car quite a bit. I love the rays of sun coming out of the rear tire. That's so cool. Let's get mean and green. I think I had the Interstate Batteries car in my top 10 last year, maybe the year before. Well, it's not quite in the top 10 this season, but it's close. I love the electric lightning bolts green, the red roof number. It's a nice touch. Did they have that last year or is that new for this year? I may be wrong. I think they had it last year. Either way, it looks really good. Interstate Batteries, I mentioned this about the Loves design, but their logo was angled to fit the space better. Interstate Batteries, not afraid of doing the same thing. And I think it looks really, really, really good. Does anyone truly miss the old candy cane zebra stripes? Does it have like some sort of cult following I don't know about? Because I don't miss it. In fact, I miss it less and less every single day, especially whenever I get to see this car or a similar car on the racetrack. So I put this one at number 15. Back-to-back green machines. Going back to Bristol Dirt, I actually preferred Ty Dillon's green and orange Gain car over the Tide Ride by just a little bit this season. Maybe it's because they had to add some Food City blue to the Tide Ride, whereas here, no, they kept it orange and green throughout, even though there is still the little Food City logo in the back. I don't know. I love the theming, of course. Gain, cleaning supplies on the dirt track. Genius. The car just looks great as well. It's bright. It's easy to spot. The side skirts are being scrubbed. I didn't notice side skirts are painted. That's a nice touch for a brightly colored car like this. I do think wrap side skirts are a necessity. This thing looks fantastic. I think worthy of a top 15 spot, no doubt. At number 13, I had to have one Chase Elliott car on this list, the Hooters Mobile. I just called it that. I doubt that's what it's actually called. I hope that's not what it's actually called. But this looks great. The addition of the light, I don't know, baby blue, the sky blue. I'm going to call them like echoes almost. You got the orange there just above the side skirt, and then you have blue echoes kind of coming off from it. Same thing there on the A and C posts. Again, coming down. The blue is highlighting like a glow being emitted by the orange. For a base white paint scheme, there's a lot of color and a lot of personality on this one. Adding the Hooters owl, what's his name? Is it Hootie? I hope I'm not wrong about that. Adding him to the side, again, taking full advantage of that extra space. I'm a fan. It's so different from the Hooters cars of like 1 or 2 years ago. Remember the matte black with the bright orange decals? Like that was awesome. I think that might have even been in my top 10 at one point. This is the polar opposite. It's base white. There's light blue. Where did that come from? Yet it works. This one was bold. It was risky, but it was effective. So I have to give this one props. Definitely worthy of a spot on my list. It was my favorite Chase Elliott scheme of the year. Elliott didn't really have any bad schemes. Like I liked the Napa car. I thought his Kelly Blue Book car actually looked pretty good. This was the only one though that really jumped off the page, jumped out of my TV, in my opinion. This car does not get enough credit. Gear Wrench reinvented themselves. A couple years ago, when they were on Kurt Busch's car at Ganassi, I think I had them in my top 10 then. And back then, it was more of a matte finish. It was straight up orange and black. This car, with Kevin Harvick, maybe it's just the lighting in this particular shot, but it's almost a bronze, like a reflective, like kind of shiny finish. And it looks great. And the design on the side, framing the Busch Beer and the Rush Truck Centers logos. A lot of Harvick schemes this year featured a similar sort of style, little framing. I think it was great. And I love that there's some sort of brand identity. There's consistency there, whether it was a Subway car, Busch Beer car, Gear Wrench car, Mobil 1 car, didn't matter. They always had that little space carved out for the contingency for the associate sponsors. I love the consistency. But the black and bronze in this case, I don't think gets enough recognition. I don't know how many races Gear Wrench sponsored this year for Harvick. It couldn't have been more than a couple, but I hope they continue to increase their involvement year after year if they continue to put out banger after banger. I mean, they reinvented themselves. Like I'm saying, this was a completely different color scheme a year or two ago. They made it more bronze this year and somehow made it just as good, if not better. So fantastic looking paint scheme, great work over there. Love the Gear Wrench cars. I think they're low-key some of the best in the sport every single year. We had Wendy's on this list, so naturally we have to talk about the fast food giant that is McDonald's. That's right, the red and yellow golden arches are back and they look great. I'm pretty sure I had a McDonald's car in my top 10 last year. This year, I have it at 11th, so really close, not too far off. It looks awesome, and I love the addition of the cartoon Big Mac and fries there above the side skirt. A creative way to use that extra little bit of door space, and the DoorDash and Dr. Pepper logos, both kind of complementary to what McDonald's offers. It looks great. It all feels very cohesive, whether that was intentional or not. There's a healthy balance of red, white, and yellow on the front nose. I think the front nose, like the front bumper, like what you see behind me for the Sunny D car, which spoiler alert, we will be seeing later. In my opinion, that is the most important part of a car to design. Because when you're watching on TV, yeah, there's some overhead shots from the blimp or the helicopter where you see the hood clearly, but many shots, the car's kind of coming at the camera at one of these angles where the first thing you see is that front bumper. Depending on the color scheme or the angles, you can really make a mean looking race car just by focusing on that one area. So I really appreciate designs that, I don't know, look good when they're coming right at you. This McDonald's car, I think, fits that description. So number 11 this year. I guess that means it's fallen off slightly because I think I had it at like number 5 or 6 last year's version. This car about knocked me out of my seat when I first saw it. Where do I even begin? I guess I have to begin with maybe my favorite small detail on any race car ever, the watermelon peeking out from in front of the rear tire. I don't know who thought of that, but give that person a round of applause. The blue, green, and white Advent Health logos look really good. I love the angled spikes up the side. If the whole scheme was just that, it might be in my top 20. More likely it'd be in my honorable mentions. But the little watermelon detail, I know you guys may think it's crazy, but that goes a long, long way. That vaults it up barely into my top 10, 10th place. Watermelons are such a big part of Ross Chastain's brand. I know they have absolutely nothing to do with Advent Health. But the fact that the team or the sponsor, whoever, was able to sneak that little detail in there, something to identify the man, the human being behind the wheel, NASCAR needs more of that. This is what we're talking about when sponsors allow their drivers, their athletes, to truly express themselves, to be themselves. In some ways, that's just, hey, drivers should be free to say whatever they want to say, to be outspoken, to talk to media. But in other respects, just aesthetically, sponsors should be willing to merge with their drivers' established brand. Ross Chastain is the watermelon man. Advent Health, I believe, is based in Florida. Ross Chastain is from Florida. This is a natural match. I'm glad they incorporated some watermelon into this design. It's a small detail, I know, but it's my favorite small detail in all of racing. At number 9, 'tis the season, the Castrol Christmas colors here on Brad Keselowski's number 6. Maybe because it's mid-November, I'm in the holiday spirit, but I really truly just love the colors on this. Red and green, little bit of white, the reflective chrome door numbers. I thought I would be tired of chrome door numbers by now. And sure, there are some schemes where you see it and you're like, that just does not need it. I mentioned how Harvick had some consistency all year with how they managed the associate sponsors there in front of the rear wheels. Roush kind of had the same thing. From what I understand, this was a Brad Keselowski design element. He wanted to add those sort of 3 stripes there coming out from the side skirt behind the exhaust. And in this case, I think it fits pretty nicely. This is another example of a car that I think would look great if the spoiler could have been red, perhaps. But overall, I really like it. It's easy to spot. It truly is giving me Christmas vibes the more and more I look at it. Like the silver chrome door number, it's like, silver bells, or from the Polar Express, the little bell that the kid gets. Spoiler, if you haven't seen the Polar Express, which is like a 20-year-old movie. I went shopping the other day and all the stores, all the malls are decked out with Christmas stuff already. So maybe it's just the time of year. Ask me again in June. Maybe I have this car a little lower on my list. But for now, yeah, I'll put it in the top 10. At number 8, Joey Logano's Pennzoil Ford. Not his Shell Pennzoil Ford, which is the main scheme he ran for the vast majority of races this year, but this car in particular, which he only raced, I think, twice all season. He did win in this car this year, but it's a simple scheme. It's basically just yellow. There's some, scales or something to it, especially you see on the A post on this one angle. There's something going on the hood there towards the top. I guess there's a little something going on the bottom as well, but overall it's just yellow. It's a base yellow car, red door number, red roof number, same logo on the hood and on the side, but let's focus on that door logo. We've looked at a lot of paint schemes here today, a bunch of paint schemes that I think were the best of the best this season. Yet I believe this is the first sponsor logo that was comfortable making their logo so big that parts of it got cropped out. And look how well it worked. This looks like a sports car. This looks like something I'd see racing overseas. This doesn't look like a NASCAR stock car to me. This looks modern. This looks futuristic. I've talked about this before, but the Pennzoil being angled to look more aerodynamic. It's a nice touch. I wish other brands, other sponsors were more willing to do this, to make their logo larger than life so it truly looks like it's jumping off the race car. It may not work for every logo, every color scheme, but it works for this one. The bright yellow and red, it works. I don't know how else to explain it. I wish other sponsors would try something like what Pennzoil did with this scheme right here. I'm a fan. Back-to-back Penske Fords. I think I had Discount Tire scheme in my top 10 last year, but it's just great. It's really simple, don't get me wrong, but I think the red carries this. Gives it that added splash of personality, of character that I think ties this whole thing together and makes it a top 10 scheme for the second year in a row. The Discount Tire logo also looks good. Big block letters. They're sort of like angled, funny. I don't know the story behind their logo, but it looks good. It looks good on a race car. I need to go back and look at last year's version, but something about the next gen, which is a little shorter, a little stubbier, facing the front, it's a little wider. I think that actually plays to this sponsor and paint scheme's strengths. So top 10, second year in a row. All right, y'all knew this paint scheme was going to be on here somewhere. The black and yellow DeWalt colors, they just never fail. They never fail to amaze me. They added that chrome number this year. I wasn't sure about it at first, but I like it. It grew on me throughout the season. I talked about the importance of a fierce looking front end, and I think the way the yellow kind of V's in on itself here accomplishes that. It's sharp. If you look at the side, they framed the Rheem logo and other associate sponsors really well. DeWalt has a nice big yellow space there to fill. Only thing I don't love about this car, and they didn't add it until the second half of the season, was that little Yahoo logo, the little purple. It just stands out. Could they have not have slid that down to the quarter panel most weeks? I'm still not sure I would have loved the random purple logo, but it's in a very visible spot. I know they paid good money, but it doesn't help this paint scheme. I'm not going to say it really hurts it, but it doesn't help it. So I still love the DeWalt colors. I'm always going to be nostalgic for the black and yellow. 6th place for me. But perhaps could have cracked the top 5 with a couple minor changes. More black and yellow, little red thrown in this time. Ryan Blaney's Advance Auto Parts car, top 5. Another very simple paint scheme, but Advance, credit to them. They took full advantage of that extra door space. The big block yellow letters taking up all of that room. The little checkered flag logo at the back, I mean, it's a race car. Their logo fits great. Everything's angled once again down towards the front. It looks aerodynamic. The way the logo's tilted, the way the yellow and red stripe coming up from the side skirt, the way they start thin and get thicker towards the rear. Again, everything's angled into the wind for maximum downforce. Could they have done a little more, like especially on the A, B, and C posts up on the roof? Maybe something more on the hood or on the front end? Sure, maybe, but they would have risked ruining a good thing. This is a very good thing. I would love to see them experiment next year, but for the time being, this is a really sharp scheme. Last year, the Advanced car just had the same traditional, like whatever, the Penske thing on the door, and it was just red and yellow. There was really no black in it. It looked good. It was bright. They went dark. This is their edgy phase, and I don't know. So far, I like it. At number 4, there it is. We finally made it to the Sunny D car. That's right. It's not number 1, not even number 2 or 3 this year. It's down at number 4. I love the Sunny D car. It's not too different from recent years. They have room now, more room for the Sunny D bottle on the door. Hey, whoa, look at this photo. There we go. There you got a yellow rear spoiler to match the paint scheme. Okay, I think this is the first one we've seen that actually painted the rear spoiler to match the rest of the car. Nice. Okay, so it can be done, I think, right? Or did they get in trouble for this? I don't know. The best part of the Sunny D scheme, in my opinion, is that front nose. There's a reason I have it sitting right here behind me. It just looks colorful and ferocious at the same time. I think I just love when lines, when they come in and form like a V, when it's at like this angle. I really like that. Maybe that's just me. But this car, I mean, what more can I say about it that I haven't said in recent years? It looks beautiful. It looks great. Love the colors. Yeah, top 5 once again, but not number 1, not on the podium even. 3 paint schemes beat this one out this season, beginning with Kevin Harvick's white Mobil 1 scheme. There is nothing wrong with this car. There is just one small thing holding it back from being number 1, and it's a small thing. If they had taken the Mobil 1 logo on the hood and just angled it ever so slightly to kind of match the Mobil 1 hoods of the past that Jeremy Mayfield drove, or even last year that I think John Hunter Nemechek drove in an Xfinity race, then this paint scheme would have perfectly tickled the nostalgia bone in my body. As it is, as a modern take on a classic logo, a classic sponsor, this thing is fantastic. With the extra door space, they found room for the Pegasus logo there on the side. Again, they have that little framed area for the Busch Beer logo. It looks so good, and it's so consistent with many of Harvick's other schemes this season. This is a masterpiece. Top 3, it probably would have been number 1 if they had angled the hood just a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's crazy of me to say, but wow. Coming in at number 2, getting the silver medal this year, is Ross Chastain's GoPro Martinsville Night Race Chevrolet. I warned y'all this one was coming. Yeah, just the black base was way better suited for a night race, in my opinion. The reflective door numbers, shiny elements of the GoPro colors and logo. It just popped. Saw this car in person. It was phenomenal. Y'all knew a Trackhouse car had to be somewhere near the top of the list. Leave it to GoPro. I wish we could see this car. I wish we'd seen this car more than once this year. Can we get a multi-race deal? Maybe they do all the night races going forward. I'd sign up for that. Often in NASCAR, I think we like hard lines. We like stripes. We like jagged spikes and edges. But many Trackhouse cars, I noticed this on the Moose Be a Moose fraternity car as well, they opted to go with gradients, gradual transitions from dark black to lighter blue, or in the Moose case, red. Not every Trackhouse car, in fact I mentioned the Advent Health car, which quite literally had those hard spikes I'm talking about, but Trackhouse managed to make those gradual designs look really good this year. Like, something about it looks extremely modern. It almost looks like they used the blue as like shading, as like a shadow almost. Like, yeah, this car is already going to race at night, but what more can we do to the paint scheme to make it look like it's being hit by even more moonlight? Maybe it's all a trick to game the laser scanning inspection station. I don't know, but I like it. I like it quite a bit. Oh, and I did mention that the GoPro logo being angled, fit the space, aerodynamic. I'm convinced that's worth like, 25 pounds of downforce or something. At least as much as that tape that the Gibbs cars had at Pocono was worth. That was a joke, in case, thought I was being serious. All right. We've made it to number 1. This is a much longer video than I think this video has ever been any other year I've done it. But there are just that many great paint schemes this season. And I'm sure there are some of your favorites I've left off this list entirely. And I'm sorry about that. But no matter what your favorite scheme of the year was or is, I don't believe it's any match for my personal number 1. The greatest NASCAR Cup Series paint scheme of 2022 is Alex Bowman's Nashville Allied car for the second year in a row. I think somehow they beat last year's car. They made it feel more Nashville. Like last year's had all those blue splashes and jagged designs to it. This year, I mean, look, they added, guitar tuning pegs there to the front nose. That, again, the importance of a front bumper, front nose. First thing you see, you got a guitar headstock coming right at you. Once again, they painted the side skirts. Y'all know that was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s doing for sure. And unlike Alex Bowman's main Ally car, the stripes just keep going. So on going back to the main Ally car, you look at the front of the car, right behind the front wheel, the pink, purple, and blue stripes go all the way down to the side skirt. But if you look at the back by the C-post, those stripes just suddenly stop. They just get cut off out of nowhere. Seems a little unfinished in my opinion. I'm not sure if it would have looked better if they kept going, but you know what I'm saying? It just looked kind of random. This one, all the stripes. You see some stripes on the A-post. They keep going. You see stripes there behind the front wheel. They keep going. Even all the way out in the back there, those stripes keep going all the way down past the side skirts because the side skirts are painted. This is a colorful beauty of a race car. I also love purple cars. That's just a personal preference. Now this one is very pink, but I think it works for Nashville. I think if you're gonna design a car specific for one race where Ally is the title sponsor, you should theme it not only around Ally, the title sponsor, but also around the host city, Nashville in this case, which is a unique city, a fast growing city, a popular city to visit. When I was at Nashville this year, they had this car sitting out on Broadway in broad daylight in front of thousands and thousands of people, many of them, most of them, non-NASCAR fans. This car both looks great, but also I think matches the city it's supposed to be representing, or that it's themed to at least. So I don't know, it works on just about every level. Someone next year has to beat the Nashville Super Speedway Ally scheme. This is 2 years in a row. There's no way y'all can let this guy get a three-peat. There is my full list, top 22. There are just too many good schemes to narrow it down to just 10. Let me know down in the comment section below which of these you agree with. Do you disagree with my number 1 pick? If so, what was your favorite NASCAR Cup Series paint scheme that you saw on track this season? Leave a comment. But that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well for continuing to support the channel all throughout the offseason. We got a ton of content still coming your way. Thank you for your support. I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy, y'all.